Have you done one? So, hi, everybody. I am, as I begin every LinkedIn Live, I say I'm Carol Kauffman, founder of the Institute of Coaching with Margaret Moore and Susan David. That's true, but it's a little bit a lie. So, I'm going to tell you why it's a little bit of a lie, which is 20 years ago, Margaret and I met at the ICF conference, and we started working together. And then every 6 months or so, uh, she would say to me, Carol, coaching needs an academic home and you need to create it. And I would say, Margaret, what would I say?
No.
Yeah. So she did that 6 months, then 12 months, then 18 months, her third try. I said, okay, fine. And then that we would create a combination positive psychology and wellness. At that point, we didn't have enough money or whatever to be called an institute. So we were the Coaching and Positive Psychology Institute for many years.
Initiative.
Yes, right. Thank you. Until Ruth Ann Harnish donated $2 million to become the Institute of Coaching. So nothing would have happened without Margaret making me do this. So Margaret, why don't you just share a little bit about whatever's top of mind, and then we can talk about one of your papers.
Well, thank you, Carol. And it's just a joy to be with you. And, the reason that we got together, we were not just at the ICF conference, we were at the Coaching Research Symposium.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a few of them back then. And then, do you remember they ran out of research papers? And so then it was paused for a while. So we were back in 2004 amongst a small group around the world wanting to bring science into coaching. And here we are. I'm sure we'll have more trouble to make before we're done. But it's just a great joy to be with you and remember those moments when we were young 20 years ago.
This is true. So, everybody, Margaret, we may want to have Austin put a link out to your paper, but I'd love for you to talk about your work, which I think is really fantastic work, where you really talk about what we're going to call, and you can describe as ground zero. Ground zero in lifestyle medicine, in coaching, I think in leadership coaching, and then some of the work that's been done to help us understand how to get people to insights and integration. So you want to just fill us in?
Let's get going. Yeah. So, there's a common term in coaching, which is we're holding space rather than taking up space or filling space. And the reason we're doing that is because we want our clients' brains to shift in some way, right? And as long as we're talking, that's not likely happening. And then as a biologist, it seemed to me in my early days as a coach and coach trainer that the magic moments were, and back then we didn't have a science of intuition and nonlinear association of neural networks connecting with each other in new ways. But we had a sense there was some biological phenomenon going on. And that, we called the holding the space and the nonlinear creative process relational flow. That was our work together in 2004 and 5, which was those parts of coaching sessions that are generative because of the way we hold space for the potential shifts to happen. Okay, so fast forward back in, it's probably 10 years ago. Do you remember Alvaro Pascual-Leone from Beth Israel, the neurologist from Beth Israel that is the expert in neuroplasticity? And he's from Spain. He's lovely. And he talked about the fact that the brain can only grow 1 millimeter of neural network a day. Okay, so not that many connections, but some connections, the neural networks can expand. So you realize, not surprisingly, it doesn't happen like in weeks, like real change. It takes a while for neural networks to expand, and so coaching is kind of so that that simple idea of how do we make that neuroplasticity, the neural networks, the insight happen in coaching has been maybe, one of my most favorite topics all these years.
Mm-hmm. So I want to remind you of something. So 20 years ago, when you coined the term relational flow, at that point in time, Marty Seligman and Mike Csikszentmihalyi and that group didn't believe in relational flow or that emotions had any part in flow. So that paper was really groundbreaking in that way. Why don't you talk a little bit now about, you're talking about the neurology aspect of this and the plasticity and the growth. Why don't you lead off with that really great study and then let's back into
back to
ground
Spain.
zero.
Yeah, back to Spain. A group of Spanish researchers, they had, oh gosh, I should remember the number, like maybe 14 or 17 participants. But anyway, there was a group of managers, and they were instructed to bring to the lab 3 problems that were new, they hadn't solved yet. And then one by one, they put an EEG headset on them to track their brain activity. And then there were 3 interventions. The first one was, they called it rumination. Just sit there and think about it, make notes, try to solve it. The second one, so they had an ICF MCC coach do these second and third. And the second one was prescriptive advice giving. So have you thought of this? And what about that? And would you try that? So, basically giving lots of input. And the third then was true facilitative coaching, holding the space and asking questions and getting the person to come up with things. So the clients had a big button, and they pressed the button every time they had an insight. Okay, in these 3 problems. One problem was rumination, one problem was directive, and then the third was facilitative coaching. So the first thing that happened that they were able to measure is that, of course, there were more insights generated in the facilitative coaching than either the other 2, substantially more. So that makes sense, right? That this holding space and allowing people to be creative allows their neural networks to jump around and something to happen, something new to be connected. But what was really interesting is that 4 seconds before they pushed the button, okay? So before, they saw changes in brainwave frequency, so some like settling, like kind of like, when you resolve something, and found activation of the region behind the right ear, which is known, if you remember Shelley Carson's work on brain states, it's known to be the area where new ideas come to meet. Nonlinear association, like new things come together. So it's like a little manufacturing area for neural networks to join. I mean, who knows? But so now we know that when this insight thing happens, it is preceded by biological changes, which is so cool, right? That in fact there is a real phenomenon that's happening there.
Mm-hmm. And then that sort of links immediately back to helping create the space rather than fill the space. And this also ties in with Richard Vyatsis's work, where he has what he calls compassionate leadership, which we would call, coaching. And then what he calls compliance coaching, which is just the check mark, the advice giving. And so you've got the EEG results on that, and then you have the MRI.
Yes.
So really, that just sort of underpins the incredible importance of our creating a relational flow environment, an open, warm environment where people have insights and literally something is going on. Why don't you talk a little bit more about just sort of readiness and then some of the work that you've done?
Yeah, so the paper on Ground Zero, which is applicable to all coaching, is the idea that people don't walk into a coaching session ready to have an insight. That's not where they're at. Their minds, our minds are restless and agitated and, frenetic and all of those things, right? And so, many coaches start with a bit of mindfulness and exercise to calm things down, to get present, and then generate what in that paper I call tilling the soil, the top of the soil. So you till the soil to get the seeds to germinate and get access to water and sunshine. Same thing, we're tilling the soil a little bit in the first few minutes to get the brain moving in a intentional, clear way, right? So how did that go and what was really good about that? And we slow things down and we get them to smile and we connect, we use all our charms, all the ways we get people to calm down and be here so that then their minds are ready for this integration step, this moment of and so that's the tilling the soil, and out once people are feeling better resourced, then the urge to resolve something in their minds pops up. What if I didn't feel about this about like feel this about that, or what if this I could make a better, decision or take a different approach in this meeting. What's possible here? So now they're ready. They're like, da da da. You remember Beethoven's Fifth? You used to talk about it. They now are in touch with the unresolved, and they're curious about it.
Oh, people won't understand that.
Yeah. Why don't you tell
them? So in a minute, when I used to talk about, positive things are like Teflon and your brain falls off of them. Negative things are like Velcro and your brain sticks to it. And then things that are resolved or unresolved. So the unresolved things will keep you going. And so the sort of joke was Beethoven's wife had a real problem that she couldn't get him out of bed in the morning. We knew he was a little depressed. And so the only way she could get him out of bed in the morning was to go to the piano and go, dot, dot, dot. And can't you feel your brain a little bit just wanting that to be resolved? I'm not gonna. Okay, duh. And yeah, and in that sort of, how do we as coaches, really help resolve things? And Margaret, maybe you can talk a little bit about integration and what your understanding of that is.
So I'm going beyond the science right now and connecting a couple of things, which and I've been writing a book and looking at the nature of inspiration, which is another phenomenon like in this cluster when your brain kind of jumps out of its old mode and connects into something new, right? So there's this sense. So I started to use the word integration recently as a way. It's sort of like you have the insight and it's integrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's actually settled into new neural patterns. It turns out that it's a well-studied or considered phenomenon in the well-being space. So basically, in self-determination theory, Rich Ryan and Ed Deci say that integration of lived experience is the normal process for humans to grow and to get more competent. We're integrating basically the yucky stuff mostly. We're turning we're turning the rough experience into something good. And then Dan Siegel's entire book called Mindsight, it takes people through 8 different modes of integration. There's different, probably different neurological mechanisms, and it's all through therapy. But you get to the sense of what it is. So basically, the normal and natural process for the human brain is to take the yuckiness, the discomfort, the da da da, and try to resolve it, right? So it just happens all the time. It's just we can't get it to happen when we want it to, right? Like you hope tonight I go to bed and it's gonna be resolved tomorrow, right? Or by January 1 or after I come back from vacation. And what's cool about coaching is that we know enough about these phenomena that we actually can create the space and walk people through it and help them have an integration, have insight, have this neural network, neuroplasticity thing happen. And hopefully in our lifetimes, we'll see more research showing how this happens and why it happens and how to make it happen faster. But like in many areas, we're at the cutting edge of the research, right? We have this visceral sense of it as well as scientific understanding. So now we can be in the game helping it happen.
Okay. Two things at once is one, I think it would be helpful for all of what you just said rests on the basic principles of self-determination theory, basically meaning I want to be determining my life. Can you do 2 minutes on what are the three basic psychological needs and how meeting those creates the conditions
Exactly.
where insight is possible?
So the point is that psychological well-being, people with good levels are more likely to have insights and integration of their difficult experiences. Yes, so there's 6 mini theories in self-determination theory. The one that's most known is on the 3 core psychological needs. And many of you have heard me talk about this before. Coaching is a direct application and meeting of these needs. So the first one is autonomy, which kind of like authentic leadership is about understanding what's important to you and living by that, making your life meaningful, making your work meaningful, making your conversations meaningful. So it's not somebody imposing their values like the system or your spouse or your doctor. It's you genuinely following your own values. So that's why we hold space rather than fill space. Number one. Second need is you want to get more competent. You want to be able to do more things, and you want to suffer less because you can do more when you're suffering less, when the discomfort turns to growth. So part of becoming more competent is integrating your experience into more strength and competence. And then the third need is relationships that support both of those two. So I help you live the life by the values that you've got, what's important to you, and then turn that motivation into getting better. I mean, it's a simple way to explain coaching as there is.
Okay, and so in the leadership space where this is important is when I work with leaders, I'll sometimes give them a quick tutorial of how can they create a culture and organization where people can have autonomy, to realize that really matters to people, and therefore we can then in an evidence-based way really talk about why is micromanagement so undermining. It reduces someone's their autonomy. And then in terms of the relationships, how can they create a culture where there's more high quality relationships? So, and how to, we have a lot of research on that, Kim Cameron's work, et cetera. And then that leading to the capacity to be more competent. And the whole realization of that if people can feel more of a sense of purpose, et cetera, their sense of I can do things goes up, and hence they're more competent. And so I was working with one leader once who he said, well, yeah, Carol, but our market share is dropping. People can't be autonomous right now. And so then I said, well, is that true forever? He goes, well, no. I said, so let people know that. So that's just this, all of this translates, I think, to leadership coaching and creating like more of a ground zero leadership approach where that's possible.
Exactly. And actually, I think it is possible in a crisis for people to still find their own autonomous motivation, because all that means is that you've internalized what your boss wants you to do, and you've made it what you want to. So it's not like you're not selling out. You're just saying, I agree that the most important thing we need to do is to respond to this market change. And I want the company to get through this. So therefore, my values are aligned. So it's not about abandoning what you want and autonomy. It's allowing people to choose the thing autonomously that the others want them to do. But that's actually integration. That's what another thing that DC and Ryan talk about is that we integrate other people's motivation into our own, and we make it our own. And that's a more mature place to be than resisting and arguing.
So we have one question here. Lauren Margulis, who says, "Hi, Carol and Meg." Hi, Lauren. Can you please share one or two specific ways to till the soil with
Yes.
fast-paced leaders that wouldn't seem hokey to them? Love that question.
Yeah.
So why don't you just sort of say in a second, in the context of leadership coaching, what would till the soil be? And then how might you do that with someone?
Yes, great. Well, I'm not afraid to tell people that's what I'm going to do. You know what? This is what we're going to do right now because you're in overdrive and we're not going to get very far. Would you be okay with us slowing it down and creating the conditions for some progress? So I wouldn't be afraid just to say, this is what we're going to do because, people will get it. Okay, yeah, I'm in overdrive. I'm not really equipped to have an insight right now.
Oh, that is
So that's
interesting
one
because
way. And then start, basically, it's all about generating, the simplest thing is how to generate more positive emotions in the moment. What are you feeling good about? What's gone well? What's the best thing that happened? What are you enjoying? What gives you pleasure right now? Just get some positivity sparks going, and then use that as a learning moment, that's what you want to do with others too, because when they're in overdrive and when they're feeling exhausted or depleted or resistant, you want to shift change the channel from
Mhm.
that to the more positive, the gratitude, the appreciation, the zest, what are you enthusiastic. So you really are, I call that changing the channel, because sometimes you want to process the negative. That might be what's needed right now, or at some point in the session. But just let's get onto a different channel so that your brain is in a better, more positive place, more creative, more strategic, and we can do better work today.
Yeah, well, it's funny because just today I was coaching one of these fast-paced leaders, and he started talking. I said, um, "You know what I say at moments like this? Because I don't want to shame them. I'll say, moments like this, I say to myself, Carol, downshift. Is this a moment now? It would be helpful for you to just downshift,
Yeah.
because that's like, I mean, most of my clients are these powerful men and
Yeah,
car
they like the idea of the car metaphor. Yeah.
but then also to go to, well, with this thing, what impact are you trying to have and what impact are you having? So just some ways to help them be more, I think of, the sort of like, if you want to start an initiative, it's like, how do you soften the ground before you plow it? And so it's like, how do you get them on board? A lot of tilling the soil is creating a positive, trusting relationship, so
Yes.
that then when you say things, it can land and something can grow.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is to realize that the soil might be a bit dry and lacking social nutriments. Even the most successful people could be feeling, not at their best. And just knowing that and being compassionate about that and recognizing and just seeing how much tilling you need to do, forth.
Well, I think you just said a really important thing. I actually like this in the paper, is that coaching provides the social, I think of nutrients, nutriments is the correct scientific word, but I had to look it up. But how that
Yeah.
we as coaches can provide, through the relationships that we create, that we help, like, if we're going to use the ground imagery, to water it, to have, someone to talk to, someone to say, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and felt like I can't be a CEO. So it's back to the,
Right.
the simple, creating a trusting relationship that's ego free. Because one of the things you talk about is what blocks this ground zero meaning open space. What blocks it is our ego. And so it's just, again, how do we create that relational environment that CEOs are, well, leaders are, well, all of us are hungry for that.
Yeah. Well, I want to expand on that a minute, if it's okay, because one of the first orders of business for a leader is to see things clearly as they are.
Mm-hmm.
And what we learned from Lisa Feldman Barrett, who we love right in our community, is that the all the activity going on in your frontal cortex is designed to help you make the right next step. It's not designed for you to experience the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually have to override. You have to step back from your mental activity to receive the moment and get what's happening and see things clearly. And I think that's a really big lesson for leaders, because you get so confident and so powerful and so effective that you trust your mental activity a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then you miss things, right? You miss. I mean, we all do, right? It's not like we just all of a sudden woke up one day as coaches and we're clear. But we're all trying to get better at this. But it really is important for everyone to realize that the brain is not perceiving the moment unless you override the automatic activity.
Yeah, so in the book that I wrote with David Noble, Real-Time Leadership, we say there's 4 stances. One is to lean in and be action-oriented,
Yeah.
lean back and be data-oriented, lean with and be people-oriented, or don't lean
Yeah.
and be reflection-oriented. And the why does that matter? All of the other ways of thinking you're saying is what we're producing. But if we can stop and kind of create that space, we're then open to reflective, like information coming in to us, the aha experience that might not happen. We talk about it with running or whatever, but we can make it happen by hitting our own ground zero and helping them find ground zero.
Yeah, and we can at least provide, we can channel that in the sessions so that they feel what it feels like to be that present. The thing that's also important is that you've got all these emotions and thoughts. We now know the emotions are first, and then the thoughts pile on, right? So then it's a bit of a traffic jam in our frontal cortex. And we have to then discern, okay, which is like good values, things that are important to me that I want to act on, or, take care of myself, versus what needs to, what I like to say, it needs this little sit down. There's, I'm over agitated, I'm angry, that's not going to help me see clearly. I need to be with that. I need to do something to do with that. And that's it. That's another opportunity for integration, is to turn the irritation, understand and own it as a leader or as a human, and recognize that's your path to integrate, and don't give it to somebody else. Keep it, set it aside, and
yeah, I want to pick up on something you just said. And Jerry, oh gosh, I'm terrible, Udelson, she says yes, or he, I can't see the picture, yes. Coaches model presence for our clients. I just kind of want to underscore that. When I saw that down there, I went like, yes, sort of modeling presence, opening up the space so that you can see clearly. So we have 2 minutes left. What would you like to leave people with, or what have we sort of not gotten to, some gem that you're interested in? I have one if you don't.
Why don't you, if you might be fast.
Just in this, it's just you do all these throwaway lines like this, and it's like, so one is, you said one of the skills being rolling with resistance.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you talk about that skill?
Well, that's drawn from the field of motivational interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, because our need for autonomy is so strong, even if we're polite about it, if someone starts judging you, you should do that, I think this is right for you, then the reaction of the part of us that needs autonomy is to, you're not my boss. Don't control me.
Mm-hmm.
People do not want to be controlled. That's like, no, even, babies, like it's a lifespan thing. So when you're coaching and you detect that your client is resisting you a little bit, that's your sign that you've stepped over the bounds. You have stepped on their autonomy. That's and then you need to own that, and then you need to roll with it, and you need to immediately shift to empathizing with how they're feeling about that. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's not what you want. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So rolling with it is observing. Oh shoot! I just stepped on their autonomy. Like somebody's toe, right? Okay,
I
it's my
love that.
even if I was just channeling someone else, like it's the boss's assistant saying something, and then the person sees the boss and is
Hmm.
assisting the boss, not the assistant. You still have to acknowledge, okay, I have triggered this resistance. Yeah, sure, they own it, but I can do my part in diffusing it and coming back around to
Absolutely.
the side. Yeah,
And getting back to this open space and not filling that space.
yeah.
So we are at time. Thank you. And I can see why you've trained what, 1,000 coaches a year, some massive number. And it's really, it's a pleasure to hear you. And just, I love the wisdom that just sort of rolls off your tongue. So I'm really glad I asked about that last part.
Well,
Stepping
thank
on
you.
someone's autonomy. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you very much. Okay, everybody, hope to see you next month, first Wednesday in November.
Thank you, Carol. It was a delight.